All right, looks like we're live. Sweet. Make sure it's working. All right, looks like we're live. Sweet. All right, it's working. All right, so I've got the chat up here, and I will wait and see if anybody has any questions. All right, it's working. Sanchez says, Jordan, my man, what's up? Hope you're doing well. It's good to hear from you. Sanchez. Eleanor Snow, oh my gosh, it's good to see you. I hope you're doing awesome. How are things in your world, Eleanor? Ziri Hazuka says, yo, what's up? Andreas says, hey Jordan, thank you for everything. More than happy to help. Hope you're doing well. Eleanor says things are going great. Hope you're doing well. Oh, thank you. Yeah, things are going well on my end, and I'm so glad to hear that they're great on your end too. It's Marcus says, hey Jordan, does your S5 method program work pretty well for DPR recovery? I mean, I would say so. We have a lot of different testimonials of people that have been able to use that framework to see amazing results. And so it's basically the 5 things that I've learned rewire the nervous system after working with thousands of people and really figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Fake Mert says, hello, greetings from Turkey. That is so cool. Turkey. I personally don't like turkey, the meat. I'm sure turkey, the country, is awesome, but not much for turkey, the meat. Ziri says, is the S5 method enough for recovery, or is mentoring a must? So that's a good question. I think a lot of people will be able to heal without mentorship. I did it. I didn't have any mentorship whenever I healed, but it also took a very long time to recover, and I went through a lot of things that I wouldn't have had to go through if I would have had mentorship. So you need a body-based strategy and also co-regulation, which is somebody working with you that makes you feel safe and calm. If you want to recover as quickly as possible, it's definitely not impossible to recover without co-regulation for, I would say, most people. Or sorry, some people. Flip that. But the longer that I do this, the more that I realize most people need some sort of co-regulation in addition to learning how to self-regulate, which is changing what's happening in their body. What we're finding is what primarily heals humans is other humans. There's just something about being connected to somebody that makes you feel safe, that really, really calms the nervous system. And it's really important. Eleanor says, from somebody who is in the program, the S5 method works if you're willing to put in the work and be dedicated to yourself. Awesome, awesome. Slime Traveler. That's a cool name. How do you keep consistent and motivated when you feel nothing? So there's something called avoidance-based motivation, which is what I teach people. Avoidance-based motivation is essentially where you identify things that you want to avoid and let those things motivate you. And so I tell people to write out the top 3 things that you want to avoid. So it's typically, people don't want to be stuck in the symptoms forever. They don't want the symptoms to get worse, things like that. And whenever you're feeling unmotivated, pull that list out. And because your brain is wired for avoidance, your brain will motivate you to avoid, even if what you're avoiding is something that you want to avoid. Like the thing about traumatized people, which if you're dealing with DPDR, you're in a trauma state, which is a state of nervous system overwhelm, is your brains are wired for avoidance, right? Think about it. Whenever you're triggered, you either physically avoid the sensory trigger, or you're in the environment, but you're in your head. So you're interoceptively avoidant. You're avoiding your own body in that environment. And so if the neural pathways in your brain are formed for avoidance, well, if you can't beat your enemy, join them. And so that's the power of avoidance-based motivation, is you're taking advantage of how your brain is wired right now, but yet now we're changing what we're avoiding. Instead of avoiding social situations and avoiding school or work, we're avoiding you being stuck in symptoms forever, right? We're avoiding the symptoms becoming worse, right? So you frame your day in terms of avoidance. Okay, I'm going to apply this strategy, assuming that you have a good strategy, because I want to avoid these 3 fears. And because you're trying to avoid something, your brain's going to motivate you to avoid. So Q Valento, hope you're doing awesome. Is it normal to feel disconnected and the things you enjoy and love are there, but you don't feel it? And what advice to relax and to do, because it's very bizarre? So the first thing that I will tell you is it's incredibly common. And whenever you're going into a trauma state, which is a state of nervous system overwhelm, your body, your nervous system is trying to protect you. And so things start to shut down. The freeze response is also called the shutdown response. And so one of the things that can shut down if you're overwhelmed by emotion in particular is your emotions. And you can start to not feel emotionally connected to your friends, your family. We have a lady who's working with us in our program, and she hadn't felt connected to her daughter or her husband for, I think it was 9 years. And after she's began applying what we've taught her, she's now getting flashes of emotion, and it's so beautiful. And it's very slow, it's very subtle, but it's happening. Her emotions are turning back on. And actually, whenever you're coming out of emotional numbness, you're gonna actually feel pretty terrible at first, because you're going from feeling nothing to feeling everything, right? And so that's normal. Like if I work with somebody that's coming out of emotional numbness, which is technically part of state 4 severe trauma, they're going to go from feeling nothing to suddenly feeling everything. And they actually feel worse, but it's necessary, because trauma healing begins with feeling. And so now that they can feel all this built up tension, energy, and emotion, now they can start to release it through self-regulation. And that will help their nervous system downregulate. Nikos says hello from Greece. That is so cool. I would like to know how to control irrational fears that seem so real and strong. So the key with that is you need to shift your state. And the way that you change your state is you shift your physiology and your focus. Now, sometimes with irrational fears, it helps to say a statement of truth. So you first calm your body for a few seconds. That's going to help restore access to your prefrontal cortex, so you can actually start using logical, critical, creative, and contextual thinking again. And then one thing that may help to say is, after you calm your body, remember that's important, because if you don't calm your body first, you don't have access to your prefrontal cortex very much. And so trying to out-logic the illogical fear will not be effective if you don't first relax your body. But you calm your body, and then you say a statement of truth. There's no evidence to support this fear. There's no evidence whatsoever. And then thirdly, you step out of the boxing ring. you start challenging your mind with something healthy, and don't sit there and continue to wrestle with it. And this is called a pattern interrupt. And you're going to have to do this again and again and again, because that irrational fear is very sensitized, because you've had lots of painful past experiences related to that irrational fear. And so, like, whenever it comes to rewiring the nervous system, nothing is instant. Nothing is going to just instantly happen. Like, it's going to take changing the patterns happening in your body, happening in your life, and then you got to give it time. It's kind of like planting a seed, and then you create the conditions for the seed to grow. So sunlight, water, nutrients in the soil, sunlight exposure. Did I mention sunlight? And then you got to give it time, and then eventually you get harvest. So a lot of people, they start doing what I teach, either through my courses or my YouTube videos, or they come into our 12-week program and they're like, it's not working. I'm doing the stuff and it's not working. And I'm like, well, if you had 100 pounds of fat, you wouldn't expect to jump on a treadmill and then just all the fat plops onto the floor. It's going to take time. You got to change your diet. You got to do a calorie deficit plus exercise, and then you got to give it a lot of time for the weight to start to burn off. It's just like that whenever you're rewiring your nervous system and you're starting to do things that convey safety to the nervous system. Like right now, your nervous system is wired for threat, and it's strongly wired, especially if you've been walking around in these autonomic defense mechanisms for many years. And so you shouldn't expect that to just, rewire overnight or in one day. It's going to take time. Eleanor mentioned that it took longer for her to recover because she wasn't consistent, and she actually came through our program and was incredibly fun to work with. And it's true. That's a big reason why it takes people a very long time, even once they learn what to do. Like I've got this workout program thing that I bought like 5 or 6 years ago, and if you look at me, you can see I haven't been very consistent with it. I mean, I still got the pencil neck, and yeah, my wife loves me though, so that's all that matters, and Jesus loves me too. But it tells you exactly what to do to gain muscle if you're an ectomorph body type, which is what I am. And I've been consistent with it at times, and I saw the results, but then now I'm not being consistent with it, so I'm not seeing the results. And so it's like you can have the right approach, but if you don't combine consistency with the right approach, you're not going to see results. And not only that, but another thing that I've been telling people for about the last year is anytime that you're applying a framework, so a framework meaning like a step-by-step, whether it's relationships, whether it's diet, whether it's business, whether it's, healing from these symptoms, you have to apply it exactly as it's taught. One thing that I've found is a lot of people will kind of do their own thing, and they won't really apply everything exactly as it's taught. And there's a reason, like with my S5 method, for example, like there's a reason it's the S5 method and not the S4 method or the S3 method. It's because these are the 5 things that I have discovered will rapidly start to rewire your nervous system. And I've seen some people just do one thing. In fact, I had somebody reach out to me, I guess it's been like 6 or 7 months ago, and I typically just don't respond to too many people, which, by the way, guys, if you ever send me an email or send me a direct message and I don't respond, I just want you to know it's not because I don't care about you. It's because I have a wife and now 3 kids. I have my 12-week mentorship, and I just have an incredible amount of work on my plate. And I've got thousands of people a month that want my help, and so I've got to be very careful with my energy. So just know it's not ever personal if I don't respond to you. I just only have so much energy per day. But this guy reached out to me, and it was really late at night, and he was like, hey, I'm a dad, and I've got my kids, and like, I'm struggling. And he said that he was doing everything. He said, I've got your course and I'm doing everything and I'm not seeing results. And I decided to go ahead and take some time. And if I see desperation, I am more inclined to give energy. But anyway, I said, okay, are you doing this? And he was like, no, I'm not doing that. I was like, okay, well, what about this? And he's like, no, I'm not doing that. Okay, what about this part? No, I'm not doing that either. And he's like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not doing as much as I thought I was. Okay. And then I was like, okay, are you doing this negative behavior that I say not to do? And he's like, yeah, I'm doing that all the time. Okay, what about this thing that I tell you not to do? He's like, yeah, I'm doing that all the time. What about this thing? And I probably listed like 15 different things that he needed to either be doing or not doing. And he wasn't doing the things he needed to be doing, and he wasn't not doing the things that he didn't need to be doing. And he was like, dude, thank you so much. And so what I'm saying is, a lot of people don't realize how much that they're not really doing. Like, we think that we're doing about 20 times more than we're actually doing with anything in life. And so anyway, I hope that you buy my programs. And if you wanted to check out our 12-week program, please apply. We're very limited on our 12-week program, by the way. That's definitely not for everybody. But you have to apply everything. You have to apply it exactly as it's taught, and you have to give it time. It's going to be a lot of work. Like, if you really want to rewire your nervous system, it's not going to happen overnight. It really does take some work, but it is worth it. Eleanor says, Jordan, help me understand that when you're in this state, your brain is not being logical and it is very pessimistic. Absolutely. Yeah, that's one thing that I tell people too, is you have to trust the process. You have to trust that if you will create the conditions for healing long enough, your body will heal itself. And you shouldn't expect yourself to be confident that you can heal. That would be weird. Like, if I showed up, like if I was talking to a client on a session and they showed up and they were like, you know what, Jordan, I'm just like so confident. I'm 100% certain that I'm going to heal. I'd be like, well, that's good, but it would shock me. I didn't believe I was going to heal whenever I was doing the things that I did to heal, and nobody else does either. So just know it's normal to not believe that you can heal. 100%. Chelsea, Missouri says, can you get a 30% break, 60% break, 90% break? Absolutely, yeah. Breaks from symptoms, it's not like the symptoms 100% shut off for a few seconds or a few minutes or a few days, etc. Typically, you'll just see a lessening of intensity at first. So you feel like a 50% reduction in symptoms or something like that. And then eventually, if you continue to create the conditions for healing, you'll get a full 100% break for a short period of time, and then it'll go away. And it's a hard process, guys. It's frustrating. Like if most of you are probably dealing with depersonalization, realization. That's what most people. That's why most people follow me, which is great. But if you're dealing with DPDR, it is not anxiety, guys. It's like if you have heard that DPDR is a symptom of anxiety, it is not true. It's just not scientifically accurate. This is a state of trauma, and you may think, well, I haven't been through any traumas recently. I haven't been in a car accident. I haven't gone to war. In fact, I told my pastor, he was one of the most amazing people ever. My wife and I found an amazing new church. But anyway, I told him, or he asked me what I do for a living today, actually. We talked on the phone. And I told him that I help people with trauma. And he said, okay, you probably work with military people, veterans, active military. And I was like, well, yeah, I do. But most of who I work with are not active military or veterans. I think I've got probably 3 veterans or active military that I'm working with right now. But I said most of it is just everyday people. Trauma is a state of nervous system overwhelm, and it can happen due to an unthinkable amount of reasons. And also, most of the people that work with me, it's complex trauma, meaning it's not just one big bad event. It was a series of stressors and adversity that built up, typically over a very long period of time. Not always in childhood, but a lot of times the people that come to me, they did have a very chaotic childhood. They grew up in nervous system war zones, which is an environment that is highly chaotic, highly punitive, highly aggressive, highly unstable, or highly unpredictable, typically because they had a very dysregulated caregiver. And the neurological template that was formed in their childhood was one of perception of threat everywhere. And so they started off their life very anxious, a lot of the people that come to me. And they had all these painful experiences, and they didn't know how to self-regulate. They didn't know how to change what was happening in their body. And they weren't even in their body. They were in their head. They were escaping or numbing their body. And then it was like water that filled up. And then boom, there was one thing that happened. Maybe it was a bad drug experience. You know, that was me. The marijuana experience in 2008 was like the straw that broke the camel's back. But it wasn't just that. Whatever that was, maybe it was a breakup for you, whatever it was, that was just the tipping point. That was the drop of water that made the cup overflow. There was a lot of buildup in your body and nervous system before that. And so that's why once you hit that trauma state and DPDR and other traumas kick in, that's why they don't just shut off instantly. Because you've got a lot of buildup, a lot of emotion that you haven't been feeling and facing and releasing, a lot of energy that you haven't been releasing, a lot of tension that you haven't been releasing. You don't have enough boundaries in life with people. And maybe you're a people pleaser like I was for many years, and you just say yes and you don't think about your energy. And maybe you're overworking yourself, and maybe your sleep isn't where it needs to be, and maybe you've got toxic relationships in your life, and there's just all this stuff that is keeping your nervous system in a state of overwhelm. And you're resisting the symptoms, you're obsessing over the symptoms, you're talking about them all the time, you're avoiding things that cause symptoms. Do you see how this is a big mess? This is a big, like, messy ball of stuff that we have got to deal with, and it is not going to happen overnight. But if you make this your number one priority, you will beat this. Okay? And actually, I just interviewed, by the way, I'm going to post this within the next week. I just interviewed somebody who went through our program, and he has been symptom-free for almost 2 years now. And he suffered with severe depersonalization, realization. He was having 10 panic attacks a day, and he was like one of the number one most serious people that I've worked with, and he applied every single thing that we taught, and he was just so committed to it. He gave up drinking, and he gave up a bunch of other stuff. In the interview, he talks about it. But anyway, it's like he was highly committed. He did everything that we said. He made his health his number one priority, and he kept doing the stuff that we taught him too, which is why he's still symptom-free. He was self-regulating while we were doing the interview. He just made it a part of his life. So guys, what I've learned is that the 80-20 rule, about 80% of people are going to do what's easy, and they're not really going to be consistent with, like, even if they know what to do, they're not going to be consistent with it. But 20% of people are. And that 20% of people is really who I have shifted to really go after as far as wanting to work with. Because if somebody's not even committed, I cannot help them. I cannot help them, right? But if you are committed and you're ready to make this your number one priority, you can do this. You can rewire your nervous system, but it will have a cost. You may have to give up people that you're connected with. You may have to give up going out, staying up till 2 and 3 in the morning, drinking all night. You know, you're going to have to give up some time to really learn how to get in tune with your body again. And it's going to be up and down. But anyway, but it's worth it. It's a short-term investment for a long-term, extremely powerful benefit. Okay, I'll step off the pedestal. Yeah, NKid Live says recovery is possible. I definitely would agree with that. Marcus says, I actually had a break a few weeks ago. Awesome. You felt like there was a glass pane, so derealization. And You ask yourself, did the symptoms just shut off? Yeah, whenever the symptoms start shutting off, you usually don't even notice it until after it's already happened, and then you'll be like, oh my god, did I go time without symptoms? And it does happen very slowly, very progressively. Guys, this process sucks. Oh my gosh. And helping people through this process is incredibly difficult. If it was not for I know I've said this 10,000 times on my courses, on my YouTube channel, but I'm going to say it again. Like, if it was not for the changed lives, I couldn't do this. I just could not do this. It is so much like laboring, because everybody who comes to me has tried so many different things, and they're very skeptical, and they're not in their body at all. And, they're hopeless. And so it's very, very difficult. But but just whenever I want to do something else, somebody will just have this incredible breakthrough story, and I'm just like, you know what, I got to keep going. So anyway, Eleanor says, join the mentorship. All of you, Jordan's team are amazing. Aw, thank you, Eleanor. Again, you were amazing to work with, and we miss you a lot. And so you're awesome. Ashley, Era. Hold on, let me see if I can. Can't even. I'm sorry, I can't even. I'm like nearsighted. I'm trying to look at these tiny. Hold on. Okay, there we go. All right, it fixed. Sorry, my YouTube messed up. Okay, what is the first step we can take to try and heal from this? I'm desperate. 2 years, no breaks. Well, the first thing that you would want to do, so are we talking about depersonalization, realization? I assume you probably are. You definitely want to get a full medical and mental health evaluation. 100%. Like, that's the first step if you haven't already done that. But assuming that you've done that, then, the answer is you need a framework. Like, it's unfortunately, because we're dealing with a state of nervous system overwhelm, and there's so many layers to this, there's not just one thing that I could tell you. I would say if you're dealing with DPDR, go to dprecovery.com and get my program. 100%. It's $150. I've made it very, very affordable. That'll give you the basic framework, and then find somebody to work with that will make you feel safe, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a pastor, whether it's a counselor, whether it's friends and family, whoever. People that can help give hope. Positive expectancy is really powerful when it comes to healing, as well as just a healing relationship, somebody that you trust, makes you feel safe. And then, of course, you can apply to work with us as well. But there's just so much to it that I would say get the S5 method. Iniku, these names, guys. Iniku Live says, as soon as I started being consistent with the S5 method, I started seeing results quickly. Still have some recovering to do, but I know I'll get there soon. Olivier says, Olivier, oh my gosh, it's you. I was like, wait, I recognize that name. I think that's you. I mean, I've only worked with one Olivier that I can remember. So anyway, dude, if that's you, is this the Olivier that did like the mixing, like electronic music? Is this the same Olivier? Because if that's you, you were literally one of the coolest people. And if it's a different one, that's cool too. Maybe I've worked with a couple different Oliviers, but he says, Jordan, keep it going, my man. Everyone watching this stream, trust this dude. He pulled me out of it 100%. I owe my life to him. That's some really humbling words. Yeah, that's you. Okay, man, dude, how the heck are you? Dude, hit me up on Telegram or send me an email, dude. I'd love to hear, how you're doing. And wow. Weird techno guy. Yeah, he sent me whenever we were doing our sessions, which we haven't had a session in, gosh, it's been over a year, I think. He sent me the music that he listens to, and I was like, wow. Like it's like this deep, dark techno music. It was cool, but it was definitely different. So why is there so little help out there for DPDR? So depersonalization realization. That's a whole long conversation. There are a lot of different factors. In fact, a number of years ago, I had a client who wrote her doctoral dissertation on why it's so hard for people to find help for DPDR. And I think she told me that she had identified, like, I know that it was a lot of different factors. I want to say like maybe 7 or 8. One of the issues, though, and I'm not going to attempt to name all the factors, but um, but one of them is it's very difficult to describe the symptoms. And so people show up, let's say, to a licensed mental professional, and they're trying to explain it. And if the licensed mental professional just doesn't have a history with DPDR, you know, as amazing as they are, sometimes they have a lot of trouble knowing what the person is going through. And then people tell their friends and family, and, you know, they've either not gone through DPDR, or maybe they did, but they didn't even know what to call it. And because they just experienced it for a few seconds or a few minutes. And, you know, if you don't even know what to look for, how are you going to get any help? And let me tell you a little story real quick. So whenever I was going through panic attacks and DPDR in 2008, I was having like 20 panic attacks a day, probably more than 20. I say 20, but it's probably more than that. I didn't know what depersonalization realization was. And I literally thought that I was going insane. I remember, which my uncle, sadly, he's passed away. He actually had mercury poisoning, which really just messed with his mind. And he was kind of the crazy guy in the family, and which I would never say now, but back whenever I was a kid, that's kind of what we said as kids. And he would like talk to himself and just a lot of odd behaviors. And I remember I thought that I was going to end up like him. And I was like sitting there at my mom's kitchen table, and I was like, well, I'm the guy in the family that went crazy. I lost my mind. And it just felt so real. I'll never forget it. I was just sitting there like with my hand on my head, and I was like in a ball. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the guy in the family that lost his mind. And it was just fear. It was just an irrational fear. It wasn't true. But when you don't know what's going on, and you're feeling depersonalized and derealized, and you're feeling like you're dying all the time, and the prefrontal cortex is shut down, which is logical, critical, creative, and contextual thinking, like, it's very easy to come to some very dark conclusions. And so I remember I called my dad, and I said, Dad, which my dad's always been like the calmest guy ever. And I was like, Dad, I think I'm going crazy. I was like, I feel like I'm dying all the time. And it took me a long time to work up the courage to even tell anybody about this. I was embarrassed, and I thought that if I told my parents or told anybody about this, that would be me giving in to the fear. I was like, I got to keep fighting this. I got to keep Googling, and I got to keep, just trying to wrestle against these symptoms, out logic them, and all these things. Because if I tell somebody, that's kind of like me giving up. But my dad, he responded, he said, well, son, it sounds like you're having panic attacks, and nobody's ever died from a panic attack, and your mom, struggled with panic attacks and stuff like that. And I was like, this is a panic attack? I was like, yes, I'm so glad this is a panic attack and I'm not losing my mind. And from that point forward, I was able to start Googling panic attacks. And once I started to Google panic attacks, I came across a program that taught it was for panic attacks, and it really helped me actually for a little while because I invited in the panic instead of resisting it. And it also mentioned depersonalization, derealization in their little ebook, and it wasn't accurate. Like looking back now, like what they said actually wasn't true. But they basically said, "Oh yeah, depersonalization, realization, it's very normal whenever you're having panic attacks." And they said it's just from the panic attack. It's no big deal. And I was like, "Oh my God, thank God!" Just to hear that there was a name for it was so encouraging for me, and immediately my fear dropped towards the depersonalization, realization. So anyway, yeah. Oh my goodness. Flying over trout. He says, "Hi Jordan, good live stream. Same. Thought I had brain damage or had some unalterable brain problem. I struggled for 15 plus years, but I'm glad to say I've never been better. I do body relaxation daily." Oh my gosh. I'm so good. I'm so happy to hear from you, and I'm so glad that you're doing good. That is awesome. So very thankful for you. Yeah. So let me speak to that for a second. We actually have a therapist in our program right now. And any given year I'll work with usually a few dozen therapists, and we're about to increase that. We're going to start to train licensed mental health professionals in a big way starting this year, and we're very excited. We're putting together some training materials. We've had a lot of them request that. But a licensed mental health professional is typically a very, very good-hearted, passionate person to help. But just because you have a good heart and you're passionate to help doesn't automatically mean that you specialize in a very misunderstood, confusing symptom set like depersonalization, realization. It's just like you can go to your general practitioner, like a doctor. Let's say you go to the doctor, and maybe they're the best general practitioner in the world, but maybe you have like a very specific, shoulder issue that's like a certain bone is like ligament thing is messed up. It's like, well, you'd want to go to a specialist that specializes in that particular issue with your shoulder. But unfortunately, when it comes to DPR, there's just not that many people out there that specialize in this stuff. And so it's led to a lot of people just doing what I call the hamster wheel method, which they're just trying, everything that they can think of and find online to get help with this. And because the things that they're doing are not really powerful enough to change what's happening in the body and the nervous system, they just keep running on the hamster wheel. And it's very, very, very sad. Typically, when somebody applies to work with us, like we'll read their application and we ask them, like, what have you tried so far? And I mean, it's sad. I mean, we've seen people. I had one person. Oh yeah. Sorry, this amazing therapist lady reached out to me. I think it's been maybe 6 months ago, maybe a little bit longer. But she had a kid at their facility, which I think it was like one of the top facilities in the state. Was it Florida? Anyway, he was suffering with DPDR, and they tried transmagnetic stimulation, they tried CBT, they tried talk therapy, they tried EMDR, they tried DBT, they tried like 6 different types of medications, they tried acupuncture, they tried neurofeedback. They were just throwing all this stuff at it, and the kid was still symptomatic, and she was reaching out to me for help, and I was more than happy to help her. And what I told her is, I was like, well, technically speaking, you really need 2 things to help this person. And one of them is a body-based strategy, really getting in tune with the body, which is interoception, the experience of the embodied self, and then starting to release the buildup of tension, energy, and emotion from the body. And then number 2, co-regulation. Somebody that's going to make him feel safe and calm. And I told her, I was like, I think with him being away from his house and in this facility where it's very unfamiliar and just, trying all these different methods, it's probably really scaring him and making him very uncomfortable. Anyway, but a lot of people are just in the cycle. They're just in the cycle of trying all these different things. But what I will tell you is, one of the things that I'm realizing more and more is mentor trumps method. Method is important, and if you've got the wrong method, especially this distraction stuff, oh my gosh, that's where the method, it doesn't matter how much co-regulation you have. If you're doing distraction, it's literally at best going to get you temporary results. And probably over half of the people that apply to work with us were taught this distraction stuff. It's a band-aid. It's not going to fix the problem. You're running into your head. You're not dealing with what's happening in your body. But mentor, meaning somebody that works with you that makes you feel safe, that actually is one of the most important things, because we are wired for one another. In fact, when our brain perceives threat, subconsciously the first thing that we look to calm ourselves down is social engagement. We look to other people, right? Like if you're in a restaurant and all of a sudden, somebody walked in that was, very just disturbing looking or whatever, kind of looked threatening, you would subconsciously look at everybody else's facial expressions to determine if everything was okay. And you would look to their facial expressions and their body language to calm yourself down. If you couldn't find regulation through co-regulation, which is looking to other people, with social engagement, then you would fight or flee. And then if you couldn't fight or flee, then you would freeze, which is a trauma response. So we are wired to look to one another to calm ourselves down. And that's why whenever you started to experience symptoms, the first thing you did was jump online and look at the comments. You went to the forums, you went to the comment section. I want to know that there's somebody else out there that's going through this. Why were you doing that? Because you are wired to be helped by another person. And so the longer that I do this, the more that I realize the main reason why I'm able to help people is just because I share my story with them and I help them build hope, and I let them know that they're not alone. Yeah, the body-based strategy is huge. You've got to have it. Trauma is a body that is stuck in fight or flight response, fight, flight, freeze response. It's a body that's constantly preparing for a threat that never comes. We've got to deal with the body. But, I can't tell you how many people watch my videos just because it calms them down. I have people say that sometimes. They're like, I listen to your videos to fall asleep. And I'm like, well, that's creepy. And, but it's also, encouraging and stuff. But so having somebody that makes you feel safe, that can help create hope, build relationship, combined with a body-based strategy is really, in my opinion, after doing this for 5 years, is really the answer. So I do have to go soon, guys. Mimo Mom 23 says, thank you for your channel. It's been life changing following your advice. Oh, happy to hear that. Gavin, what's up, dude? Gavin actually has a Trauma Free Academy sticker on his drift car. And Gavin he went through our program. I mean, one of the most incredible stories ever. And I'm very much looking forward to eventually doing an interview with him. He was stuck in his bed for, I think it was like 6 or 9 months because of DPDR and trauma symptoms. And now he's out of the house and he's drift racing. And it's freaking amazing, dude. Okay, Arthur Morgan says, hey, Jordan, you're one of my personal heroes, and I was wondering if there was any way to give you my testimony on how I got over DPDR. It's a wild, wild story, and I'm really anxious texting this. Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Yeah, if you guys want to share your story, and I would love to interview you, and I'll put it on my YouTube channel, send me an email at jordan@coachjordanhardgrave.com. jordan@coachjordanhardgrave.com. And that will go directly to me, and, I'll kind of hear you out, and no promises, but most likely we'll be able to do an interview and put it on YouTube, and that'd be awesome. It'd be very inspiring. Thank you for being willing to do that. Oh yeah, so going back to the therapy thing, Iniku Live said, She said, at the point I'm at now, I think therapy can be beneficial in general, but not to get out of DPDR. So in my experience, most therapy is going to be talk therapy or some form of CBT, which, those things are life-changing and freaking amazing. There's nothing wrong with talk therapy. There's nothing wrong with CBT. But unfortunately, those things are not powerful enough to really rewire the body and the nervous system whenever you're in a trauma response. And, especially like cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive. Well, whenever you're in a trauma response, your cognitive brain starts to shut down because everything is about survival. And so you don't have much cognitive power to draw upon. So you first got to get the body regulated where it needs to be. And what you'll usually find is cognition will self-correct. Sometimes there needs to be some cognitive restructuring. But most of the time, if you deal with what's happening in the body, everything that's happening in the mind that you don't want to happen will just self-correct. So anyway, again, I'm not against talk therapy. I'm not against CBT. But if you're dealing with a trauma response, there's a lot of things happening in the body that have to be addressed. And in fact, watch our most recent interview with Nick, who came through our program, and he's fully symptom free now for pretty much almost everything that he went through. Extreme existential rumination, DPDR, anxiety, so many other things. But what was I going to say? Nick, yeah, he tried CBT, he tried talk therapy, he tried so many different things, and it just didn't work. And he says in the interview, it's because it wasn't dealing with what was happening in his body. So maybe talk therapy and CBT and a body-based approach would be great, but you gotta deal with what's happening in the body, because the body keeps the score. You're going through all these painful experiences, and if you don't know how to self-regulate, those painful experiences are getting encoded as a sensory or somatic trigger, and whenever you get around similar sensory or somatic data in the future, it's going to subconsciously produce fight, flight, freeze response in the body, and your body's going to be full of all this tension, energy, and emotion. And if it just builds up with no release, well, then that's what causes overwhelm. It's like filling up water in a glass. And then DPDR and other trauma symptoms kick in to numb you, to dissociate you, to get you away from this overwhelm that's happening in your body, because your brain thinks that you're being eaten by a lion. And if you're going to be eaten, you might as well not feel it. So DPDR and all these other trauma symptoms are not the problem. And if you're trying to get the symptoms to directly shut off, you are wasting your time. They're not the problem. Anyway. Slick says, I have to go, guys. I've got to make dinner for my wife. I'm cooking now, by the way, guys, and it is freaking awesome. I started doing HelloFresh, the subscription service, and they send you all the ingredients, and it is so much fun. It is literally one of the most, like, I've never been a cook. I'm just not that guy. Like, I've been known for not being able to cook. And now, like, I'm making this stuff, and I think cooking's in my blood, because my grandma was a great cook. My dad's a pretty good cook. And it's, like, ignited this passion for cooking. In fact, I'm going to try to make chocolate creme brulee. I even bought a little cooking torch thing to do the sugar at the end on it. But anyway, I've been doing cooking and stuff. But why did I just say that? Oh, yeah. Sorry, I don't know. Slick says, what do you think? I think I said I have to go and I'm going to be cooking, and that's why I mentioned that. Okay, but I do want to answer a few more. So Slick says, what do you think is the best way to get out of your mind and be in the present moment? You cannot be present unless you are safely embodied. So come into your body, and you're going to feel your muscles are tight. Let your muscles fully relax, or you can take maybe 2 or 3 slow diaphragmatic breaths. And sometimes if there's a lot of buildup of tension, you might have to squeeze your muscles, like locate the muscles that are super tense, squeeze, hold for about 3 or 4 seconds, and then relax. And if there's adrenaline building up, you'll know that because you feel just wired, you feel shaky, maybe your heart's pounding. You might have to do like 30, 40 fast jumping jacks to get the adrenaline out of your bloodstream before you even do these relaxation techniques. But anyway, You start increasing relaxation in the body that will decrease stress, and the more that you are in a relaxed body, the more that you will feel safe being present. And after you get into a relaxed body, then you start to become aware of the sounds and the visuals in the present moment. And that will allow you to ground into the present moment. But a lot of people try to ground into the present moment while their body is chock full of tension and energy, or maybe even emotion. It's not going to work. To be present is to be safely embodied, and you cannot be safely embodied if your body is full of a bunch of tension, energy, and emotion. Ravi says, I didn't know what DPR was till I watched your channel in 2018 when I was experiencing it. Well, I'm so glad that you found it. Okay, last question is... Eleanor says, I was stuck in my house for about a year, and then I found Jordan. Wow, a year. And remember, guys, like, in the freeze response, mobilization is perceived to be dangerous. The freeze response, which is a trauma response, is also called the immobilization response. It's feigned death. It's a mammalian defense mechanism that is designed to convey to a predator that you're dead because you're so still and you're frozen. And in my S5 method course, I've got a video that shows an impala that's in the freeze response, and it looks like it's dead. In the freeze response, movement equals death. If you actually were under danger, if there was a lion there, if you moved, well, then the lion would eat you, because predators prioritize prey that put up a fight. And so as human mammals, whenever we go into the freeze response, we're not typically just totally frozen and still, but we are oftentimes in our bed laying there. And your brain is going to tell you, don't do anything. Don't go outside. Don't go in social situations. Don't go to school. Don't go to work. No, just stay in your bed. That's what's safest. And it feels dangerous to mobilize when you're in the freeze response. But it's just your brain playing tricks on you. There's so much buildup of tension, energy, and emotion in your body that your brain is confused and thinks that you're about to be eaten by a lion. And so the strategy of the freeze response is to stay still. But that's problematic, because in order to convey to your nervous system that you're safe, one of the things that you have to do is you have to mobilize. And so that's why you're going to have to mobilize. You're going to have to move and get back to living life despite your brain telling you that it's dangerous. And then you pair mobilization with starting to self-regulate, which is releasing the buildup of tension energy in your body, combined with setting up boundaries in life with people and prioritizing sleep and getting away from toxic people and just kind of doing a sweep of your life and de-stressing. All of a sudden, you're starting to tell your nervous system that there is no lion. And because of neuroplasticity, our brain's ability to reprogram, all of a sudden there's this rewiring that's taking place. All right? Okay, I have to answer this one. Lenthanian, Jordan, off topic. What is your favorite World of Warcraft character? NPC, not PC. That's a good question. I would have to say Thrall. And is it Orgrimmar or Orgrimmar? Thrall, he's pretty much legend. And yeah, but PC, it would have to be Leroy Jenkins. Oh God, he ran in. Save him. Stick it clean. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about with the Leroy Jenkins, just type in Leroy Jenkins on YouTube and watch the video, and it's hilarious. Flying over trout says, riding my bike is a great activity for me. Absolutely. Yes, mobilize, get out there. But don't do the David Goggins stuff. guys, I want to be very clear. I love David Goggins, and you should take his mentality of like get off the couch and do stuff, but you don't hear David Goggins talking about rest and body relaxation very much. And so that's the balance. I hear people like clients all the time. They're like, oh yeah, I've read Can't Hurt Me and I've read his new book, and I'm just going to keep pushing. And it's like, actually, you kind of need to do opposite of his approach in some ways. Like, generally speaking, yeah, you do need to get off the couch. You do need to get back to living life and go after your dreams. And David Goggins is incredible. He's one of my heroes. But you actually need to listen to your body, where David Goggins would say, whenever you think you're at 0%, you still got 60% left. So keep fucking going. Don't stop when it hurts. Stop when you're finished. No, actually, you should stop when it hurts. Like, you need to listen to your body to get out of trauma. Like, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score, he says, trauma causes people to lose their body, meaning you're just not aware of what's happening in your body anymore. And so a lot of the reason that is because when your body was telling you no, you just pushed your way through. You just muscled your way through. And eventually you just went numb, and you're just always in your head. And so it's like a big part of healing from trauma is listening to your body and not pushing yourself past your limits, knowing when to stop, and also flooding your body with the necessary relaxation that's needed, and also getting good sleep, and also not suppressing your emotions. The secret to dealing with emotion is you have to feel them. You have to face them and feel them and allow them to peak, and then they're going to come down, and then you face and feel them again. At some point, they're going to peak and then come down, and then eventually they'll process and leave your body. But I think a lot of people run from their emotions, sometimes with exercise. Sometimes the gym can be not good. The gym is good, but sometimes people go to the gym to escape their body. And so you got to face and feel your emotions and release them. You have to increase rest in the body. Exercise is great, and you need to not be on the couch, but you got to be careful with that stuff, okay? It actually was pushing yourself past your limits that got you in this. That's one of the things that got you in this state to begin with. And so that's all I'll say about that. Okay, I do have to go. Yeah, Mike O'Hearn says that you can only work out as hard as you rest and recover. That's a very good philosophy. I like that. Okay, guys, I do have to go. If you asked me a question and I wasn't able to answer, I will do another one of these. Shameless plug at the end. If you are struggling with DPDR, make sure to check out the S5 method. In any of my videos, there's a link to it, most likely. And that will be the basic framework for you to heal. You definitely want to also have co-regulation, working with somebody that makes you feel safe. If you'd like to apply for our 12-week program, there is also links in all of my videos to apply for that also, which, yeah, we're still in January. I am running a special for January where you're going to get a whole extra month of private coaching in addition to the 12-week program, only in January, just to kind of kick off the year with a boom. So if that does interest you, 12 weeks of group coaching and also 1 month of private coaching with me, feel free to apply. And also, guys, I am working on a new subscription service as well that's going to be very affordable for everybody, where you'll get maybe like once a month on Zoom with me and some really cool trainings and content and stuff like that. Maybe a new training every couple weeks for how to heal from trauma, anxiety, panic, DPR, all this stuff. Look out for that as well. And just know that there is hope, and you can heal from this if you want it bad enough and if you do the right stuff. But there is a price tag, okay? And thank you also for giving me the chance to help you. Those of you who have said kind things, you are the reason that I continue to do this. I promise you, it is oxygen. It is oxygen. So keep sharing your stories. And if anybody has a testimonial, send it to me at jordan@coachjordanhargrave.com. If you're fully recovered or almost fully recovered and you used our resources, I would love to do an interview with you. And it'd be a chance to share your story, inspire other people. So let me know. He said, for the horde. For the horde! Right? Actually, my wife and I rolled Alliance, and she doesn't really care for the horde. And like I didn't get to go to Orgrimmar, and I had to learn Stormwind City, and it is what it is. But We can't wait till Pantheon. I'm actually signed up for alpha and beta testing for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, but I don't know if it's ever going to come out because it's taking forever. But that looks like a really cool game. All right, guys. Peace. Hope you have an amazing day.